Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, June 13th, 2023 Public Works Committee meeting. Now is time for a roll call and determination of quorum.
Here.
Here.
Lehman.
Here.
Ham. Here. A quorum is present.
Thank you. Now is time for the adoption of the agenda. Have a motion by Councilman Solomon, the second by Councilman Lehman. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Now is time for general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue not limited to items on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I don't have any general public comment speakers. I don't see anybody jumping up and down in the audience, so I will open and I will close that. And I will move on to consent items, items 1 through 8. And I will turn it over to our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll give a brief description on items 2 through 8 and stand by for questions after that. Item number 2 is a request or authorize staff to advertise for bids for sanitary sewer televising in the Woodlawn area. This project is to identify areas of infiltration and inflow. As some of you may remember, some months ago, there was a presentation given to this committee about our wastewater system utility master plan, and as part of that effort, certainly identifying areas of town where we have infiltration inflow is important. Item number 3 is a final change order for our 2022 MIPS construction, which actually started last year and completed this year. This project entails all the little miscellaneous pieces around town that we can conglomerate and do a contract on. The additional costs were for some additional inlet work that we did, as well as some additional asphalt paving. Those are value-added items. As the project grows in the field, it's a good thing. It's more stuff getting fixed in our public right-of-ways. Item number 4 is a final change order for the West Side Precinct renovations for the PD. I'm not too familiar with this project as I'm not involved in it directly. However, I have reviewed the documents, and if you have any questions, I should be able to answer them for you. Item number 5 is a request to purchase some property or authorize mayor to sign an agreement to purchase property. This property is located on the west side of Rapid City. It's undeveloped, previously platted lots with no improved public access to it. It's adjacent to floodplain. There's 10 lots in a row. There's an attached exhibit that shows the location of those lots. Have been working for months, if not actually years, with the property owners, them trying to possibly develop the lots, but the cost to develop the lots far exceeds the cost of the value of the property. The City of Rapid City began negotiations with them some months ago about potentially purchasing their property, and the benefit to the city is it would preserve it as green space, plus it's adjacent to the floodplain floodway, and would provide a buffer area in that along that drainage way to prevent flood damage to properties if they were to be developed. And additionally to that, it would provide an opportunity for the city to do any sort of stormwater detention or water quality features on that land, since we have no ability to get into that channel except for the channel itself. Item number 6 is a purchase of a trommel out at our solid waste division. The trommel is used to sort and classify our compost. It's part of the composting process. If you've ever purchased our fine compost product, it comes in different sizes, and the trommel is the piece of equipment that processes all of that and sizes it accordingly. Item number 7 is a sidewalk variance. along Sheridan Lake Road. Recommendation is to approve. And item 8, same thing, sidewalk variance along US Highway 16. And once again, the recommendation is to approve the variance to not install sidewalk. I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you. Do I have any questions from anybody on the dais? If not, I'll look for a motion. Have a motion to approve by Councilman Lehman, a second by Councilman Ham. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Now on to non-consent items, items 9 through 12. I will open public comment. I do have a couple of speaker request forms, so I will start on item 9 with Mr. Michael Stanley.
Good afternoon, Mike Stanley with Dream Design. We are, well, I am speaking on appealing the denial of that design exception for the turnaround over off of Cadillac and Diamond Ridge Boulevard, and we're asking that you would uphold that design exception. Two main reasons for our asking this is the length of the street in that section would be about approximately 110 feet in length, and we feel that's sufficient room for the turnaround. International Fire Code is 150 feet before a turnaround is put in, so again, we feel that 100-foot would help. Is not an issue with large vehicles turning around. The other item is that just south of this street, there's some temporary drainage and a temporary stormwater facility that takes in water from the, I'll say, the old Copperfield area that comes and flows into that area, and then also on the east side of Diamond Ridge Boulevard. So there's stormwater that comes in there and collects in that temporary facility, and we feel that if we were to start grading and installing the temporary turnaround, that might decrease some of the volume of that temporary facility. And those facilities then get reconstructed downstream as in the future and as those properties develop and as the rest of the stormwater improvements happen. So those are the two reasons we're asking for you to uphold this exception.
Thank you, Michael. If we have any questions from anybody, we will bring you forward at that time.
Okay.
So I have one more speaker request form on item 12 from Caleb Cheddar.
Afternoon. We are requesting vacation of right-of-way on the proposed Blake's Addition, 630 East Boulevard North. Currently infilled vacant lot, and we're to do our proposed changes. We will need that additional 10 feet right-of-way. So.
Thank you, Caleb. And when we get to item 12, if we have any more questions, I'm sure they'll ask you from the dais. Thank you. So I will close public comment unless somebody jumps up and down and wants to speak about something else. And we will move on to items 9. Request from KTM Design Solutions Incorporated to appeal denial of a design exception to not construct a temporary turnaround on Diamond Ridge Boulevard. Go ahead, Bill.
Nope. There it is. I just want to ask our people why you're denying this, because from the way we've been looking at it, it looks like it's kind of a waste of money to put in that turnaround there. It's not really long enough to trap anything. So what's the logic behind the denial?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's written in the denial request that our garbage trucks have to service the lots that will be on this dead end, if you will, and there's no place to turn around. So they have to back out to the next street and make a turning movement within the intersection of a through street. So that is the primary reason for request denial.
Go ahead.
So, does anybody know how many homes are going to be built on that thing? Is it just the home on the corner?
There'll be 2 homes, as I understand. Is that correct?
There's 3 lots.
3 lots.
There's one current home existing, 2 will be built.
Well, that does kind of change things a little bit, doesn't it? So, okay, thank you.
Any other speakers? If not, I'll look for a motion. If we can get a second. Jason, go ahead. You're in the queue.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. May I direct a question to our Public Works Director, please?
You can.
Mr. Tech, how many of these kind of turnaround challenges do we have in the city, and how are they navigating it presently?
More than one, and it's problematic. I don't know if any of you have had the pleasure of doing a ride-along in one of our solid waste trucks, but it's a very large machine, and backing into a through intersection is hazardous. That's why this is in front of you. I can't give you an exact number of how many short dead ends we have.
Is it quite a few? I'm curious, just a few, or is this a very common thing that they have to deal with?
It's not very common. I would say there's probably a dozen or two throughout town that they're making this move it in. And once again, we would prefer that they not do that.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Evans. It comes on. There it goes.
There you go. Well, in this case, you know, maybe we could do a win-win. Maybe the people who buy those lots would know it'd never be serviced by the garbage trucks. They'd have to wheel their trucks out to the corner. And if that would be the case, then I'd be willing to not build it. But if we don't do that, you know, a little tit for tat. So that would be my idea. Thank you.
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead, Jason.
All right. Mr. Stanley? Yes. Would you like to respond to the garbage truck turnaround?
Yes. Yeah, we recognize that they would have to back up, but as we're going to be building on these lots, we can also talk with the homeowners and convince them to please put their garbage cans on Cadillac instead of directly in front of
Mr. Chairman, our ordinance, we provide curbside pickup, and to arbitrarily tell these people you've got to roll your cans up the street and put it somewhere else from now until eternity is a big ask. When these homes sell, we may not have the understanding of the current buyers in mind. So that's fraught with issues that I could see happening down the road.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jason.
You know, thank you, and if you have anything else to add, that's fine. It's a tough, I mean, this is a tough one, to be honest with you, because generally I would be all about giving this exception, but, you know, when you think about, when you've seen those trucks back turn around, back around, and if it's in a busy road, I don't know how much traffic that road gets. Maybe it's not a lot, I don't know, but if you're saying that it's hazardous and there's a significant safety concern, you know, that I think that's something to take into consideration. So, yeah, I don't know. Mr. Tech, is this a significant safety concern, or is it just a potential remote hazard? I'm just trying to assess the risk here.
Well, let me describe to you the movement that the driver has to make. So there'll be homes on both sides of the street. The cans sit out at the curb on both sides. They have to pull in, empty one side. They have to back out of that street into the intersecting street, turn around, back into that street, and pick up the other side. So they're not only making two backing movements while they're going in, they're having to make a backing movement going out too. So the turnaround eliminates all of that movement. They go in once, they drive in forward once, utilize the turnaround, and come back out. There's no multiple backing movements in that intersection. So yes, there's multiple conflict points with having that backing movement into that intersection. You know, it's difficult to say if an accident will ever happen, but certainly on a through street in a growing subdivision, there's going to be more and more and more traffic there as this area develops.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
have other spots in the city where we don't pick the garbage up because it's a hazardous thing and the trucks can't make it through there? Are there other properties that are built that way currently?
There are a handful, however, there are areas where there have been private streets or private driveways with multiple homes on it. In those instances, those homeowners are required to move their cans, but that's all private property. So that's the condition that is most prevalent.
Well, the only reason, I mean, I hesitate to want to build that just because once a week a garbage truck has to go there, when in reality it's a lot of extra paved hard surface, which creates other problems as opposed to just leaving it more natural. So I don't know, this is like Mr. Solomon says, kind of a tough choice here.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, thank you. We can work with the developer on the configuration of the turnaround and perhaps do something creative with the surfacing of it. But certainly we've got to do something. I believe there's currently a temporary turnaround that exists there. Is that correct? Or area that's been utilized as a turnaround. It may not meet the dimensions, but it would give us something to go with. So we'd certainly work with the developer on developing what we could that would be minimalistic, that would still serve the purposes for our needs.
Can I say something here real quick? Michael, can I ask you a question real quick? So on these 3 homes, it would be extremely easy to go in and change the covenants on it where these homes had to put their garbage cans out on that road.
Yes, well, we'd have to go through the procedures to change the covenant, but yes.
You could do it on just those 3 lots. I've done it on single
Okay.
lots before.
All right.
So it would be a pretty simple process to do that. So that way in the future, the homeowners would be covered. I mean, they should get a copy of their covenants as when a new buyer buys the home. It would be a pretty simple process to do.
Yes.
So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I mean, there's always a way around every situation. Thank you. Go ahead, Jesse.
So how far are we talking as far as from the curbside to the end of this road? That's what I don't,
100 feet.
110 feet, I believe,
110
Mr.
feet.
Stanley reported.
okay, 110 feet, all right.
Go ahead.
So I'm trying to think through a motion here that's a compromise of sorts. But what if we had a motion, if anybody would, that we approve this pending either the change in the covenants to where they can put the garbage or the trash bins across the street, or an acceptable other turnaround area that Mr. Tech mentioned. Alternative. I don't know if it exists, but I feel like if we can address that issue, then we can approve this. But if we could maybe have a stipulation attached to it that it either has the covenants changed in order to prevent the turnaround in the first place, or have an alternate turnaround area.
Is that a substitute motion?
That would, I'm talking through a motion with the council to see if that's something that, if we approve with a stipulation.
I would second that.
But I can restate it for clarity if we need it. I'm thinking out loud here, so. So again, a motion could be that we approve with a stipulation that a covenant's added to these 3 affected properties stating where they can place their garbage bins and recycling bins to prevent turnarounds, or alternatively, per Mr. Tech, if there was another turnaround area that was less hazardous. Either one of those would be acceptable stipulations for us.
Can I ask Vicky a question?
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there for discussion.
Vicky, this is kind of an odd stipulation, is it? Can you maybe clarify it for us a little bit?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be real concerned with attaching a covenant on a stipulation
Okay.
that we don't have any authority to enforce those. I want you to ask yourselves, and I get that we're trying to make a solution, and from a land use perspective, I like the solution of trying to come to terms with what an alternate cul-de-sac turnaround might look like that Director Tech offered up. Maybe it's a gravel surface, maybe it's a T-shape, maybe it's a hammerhead. Minimize the space, minimize the cost, but it's there. If you're a homeowner, to push that garbage can potentially 100 feet in the middle of a snowy day, just pushing it from the garage to the curb sometime is a trek. I don't think we're being fair to the homeowners in the future. But I do like the idea of coming up with a solution for maybe an alternate turnaround that would minimize the area and the cost.
So, yeah, we could, and I only brought that up, Mr. Roberts brought the idea up, but we could have a stipulation if a agreed upon alternate turnaround is available by both the city and the applicant.
Go ahead.
Perhaps what you're saying is that you would deny the appeal to construct a turnaround, or approve the denial with the stipulation that an alternate cul-de-sac, as coordinated with the Public Works Director, be provided at the end of the street.
Yeah, so that would be, I think that's what I mean. I think that's a fair compromise for us. So I don't know if I can make that motion after talking.
Yes.
Can I? So, I mean, I'll make that motion if anybody wants to second it. Okay.
Okay,
Substitute motion, excuse me.
substitute motion?
Yes.
Okay. So what exactly is the substitute motion?
For clarity's sake, that we approve, not approve the denial, but I hate when we have to approve a denial or deny approval, but
Approve the appeal.
approve the appeal with the stipulation that an alternate, either cul-de-sac or turnaround, be made available, agreed upon by the city, staff, as well as the applicant.
What's that?
So we're approving the appeal.
We're approving the appeal of the denial. It's always confusing.
It is, that's what I mean.
So,
Approve the appeal pending, with the stipulation, that pending we find an alternate turnaround space, whatever that looks like, that's acceptable to both parties.
okay.
If not.
And
then
you
it
have a
denies.
second from Jesse.
Apparently.
So, okay. Did you want to talk, Dale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to be clear. You're either approving the appeal or upholding the denial, so which part of that is that?
Yeah, we're approving the
Okay.
appeal.
Very good.
Okay. All in favor of this very confusing thing, say aye. All opposed? No. It passes with one no, so we will be discussing this at the council again. We'll move on to items from community development. Item 10, approve of resolution 2023-018, resolution for vacation of right-of-way for property generally described as being located lying east of Hennessy Drive. Have a motion to approve by Councilman Evans, a second by Councilman Lehman. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Item 11, original Town of Rapid City, approve of resolution 2023-031, located, or resolution for vacation of right-of-way for property generally described as being located at 101 Quincy Street. Have a motion to approve by Lehman, a second by Ham. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Blake's Edition, approval of resolution 2023-046, resolution for vacation of right-of-way property generally described as being located at 630 East Boulevard North. Have a motion to approve by Solomon, a second by Evans. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Motion to adjourn, anyone?
I want to make a comment.
Oh, that's right. Mr. Evans wants a few moments.
Yeah, I want to find out the answer to this, because it's an ongoing issue downtown. Exactly how did this vacation of the street for that construction by Lloyd's come about? Because I'm telling you right now that if it had gone before the council, it never would have passed. Probably would have gone down 9-1 or 8-2. It's an extraordinary inconvenience. And frankly, we've seen 100-story buildings go up in cities where they don't give them that much street room to work at. So I'd like to know how we can go about getting 2 lanes back so we can pass traffic through that side street. And if this is some great irrevocable covenant we've entered into that we can never change, I think they could easily, based upon what we've seen, use half of that street and leave the other half open for circulation, because they don't seem to be filling it up with much. And then they got the whole other side street on St. Joe that they've taken as well. So I think it's ridiculous that that happened. I don't know how it happened. It should have, I think, come before us. So does anybody know, either Public Works or Community Development, how that happened?
Looks like Vicky wants to speak. Go ahead.
Just for clarification, you had said vacating right-of-way, but I believe you meant closing the right-of-way of 6th Street? Thank you. So Lloyd submitted a building permit for the Block 5 project. It was submitted to Building Services. Building Services routed it to the Fire Department, Engineering Division, as well as the city planners. And comments back from the Engineering Division as a part of that building permit requested a right-of-way permit to close 6th Street. That was reviewed through a team of Dale's staff, and the decision was made to grant the permit to close the right-of-way during the course of construction.
Push your button so I can let you in.
Well, my question is that, why so much? I can understand giving them the parking lane and a traffic lane, but honestly, you never see this in even big cities putting up 100-story buildings. They just don't give them that much space. And so I don't understand why this needed to be happening at all. It's really a major inconvenience, especially in the summer when we've got tourists driving around trying to find a parking spot, especially with all the other parking problems we have right now. Is there anything we can do to get half of that street back and let those cars circulate through there? Or are we locked into something for the next year and a half?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you. We all know where that site is located. It's located adjacent to 5th Street, major arterial road. It's located adjacent to St. Joseph Street, major arterial road, and then it's located adjacent to 6th Street, which is a local road, or it's certainly not an arterial road. The applicant had requested unfettered access on 5th Street to access the site for all their building materials. We have to give them reasonable access, and we told them, no, you cannot use 5th Street due to the volume of traffic that is utilized, or that utilizes 5th Street, as well as our tourists. Certainly understand the importance of 6th Street. However, we've got to give these folks a reasonable accommodation to build their building. All the piling that's going in there, that's all coming in through 6th Street. And if that were to enter the site via either St. Joseph Street or 5th Street, we'd have significant traffic issues.
Well, turn me on again. That is an explanation. I don't consider it a very good one. I think it never should have been given to them, that much access. If it can be done everywhere else on the planet Earth, it can be done here. They simply don't close downtown streets to build huge skyscrapers. So I don't know why this little teeny building that's going up, that maybe for us is huge, needs to get that kind of a variance. I think it's ridiculous, frankly. And it never should have been approved, and I want to go on record as saying that, because the downtown people are unhappy, and so am I. And that's the kind of ridiculous decisions that get made around this town that don't happen anyplace else. And I think we need to start really reviewing some of these decisions because other people are doing it better. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor? Thank you.